everybody, I see you're in time for Help Me Cooking Lunch. I'm gonna make tortellini in brodo. So follow me because this is gonna be interesting, and I'll show you how we make a real meat broth with tortellini, with meat and everything. So yeah, we're gonna put up the broth first, and by the time it cooks, we're gonna make all the tortellini. This thing is gonna simmer for like hours hours and hours. It is 8 something in the morning, and this is my bedroom, and I'm gonna put up the broth right now. Happy Easter. These are the veggies that I'm gonna use for the broth, and this is a big pan. There's a few tomatoes that I just cut enough, a couple of potatoes, a piece of celery, and a couple of carrots. Then I'm going to add the meat. This I froze it a couple of days ago when I bought it, and there are a couple of bones in the broth. One of my tricks is also to put a couple of pieces, 2 or 3 pieces of oxtail, which gives a flavor that you have no idea how good it is. So what I do, I'll just fill the pan up to here, more or less, with cold water, and I'll just put it into on the flame. When it starts to boil, I'll make it simmer for a few hours. I like to do it as clean, as simple as possible. So this is my huge pan. Just to show you in comparison how big it is. This is boiling, so I'm gonna lower the flame until it starts to simmer. Preparation, I'll just put this there and this here, so it will evaporate a little bit, but not too much. This is the broth. This stuff, I put it all in the fridge. This stuff you see here is fat that I don't wanna have. So what I do when I cook it, I just filter it, so I have a more leaner. But anyway, and then I'm gonna boil up this thing and then cook in it the tortellini I made yesterday. After all the process of cooking was finished, I ended up with about 7 liters of broth. The meat, I fished it out and had it for dinner along with the vegetables and some sauces. Then I put the broth in the fridge so all the fat would surface and it would be easier to remove. I filtered out from any impurity the rest of the broth, and I froze it in 1 liter containers. We use it mainly as a soup with pasta, little thin tagliolini like the one we did last time, and sometimes rice, and if I really want to, because it's a lot of work, tortellini, or I'll just buy the tortellini and cook it. But I also use it in risotto instead of bouillon cubes, and believe me, it's another planet, it's another flavor, it's so good. Some of the broth I'll freeze it in ice trays, and I'll use it instead of tablespoons of broth whenever the recipe requires it. Sometimes for sauces, sometimes in meats, sometimes instead of deglazing with wine, I'll deglaze with that, because not everybody likes deglazing with wine. Francesca doesn't. It's like that, she doesn't. So, and each ice cube, each broth ice cube is more or less a tablespoon.
Used to start with our tortellini. We have 50 grams, literally this is maybe a couple of ounces of minced pork, some chicken breast and some beef. Normally I will have pieces of pork, not minced pork, and pieces of beef, not minced beef, but this is all I have right now. We'll just use what we have. Over a medium-high flame, I'm going to put a good knot of butter. You're going to let it melt, and then add all the pork, the beef, and the pieces of chicken. This is brown in butter, not in oil. When this mix is going to cool off, after we have added all the other ingredients, and there are many, believe me, the fact that the meat is being cooked in butter and not in oil will make the all mix holding together, and just a little splash of red wine. That was many years ago, I think about probably 15 years ago, in central northern Italy, in Emilia-Romagna, and we stopped in Mirabilandia, which is a theme park. On the way back, we were starving, so we found this little restaurant. I can't remember the name for the life of me. And we got there, and the waiter, it was late, and the waiter said, well, we don't have a lot of things, but we have some homemade tortellini with broth. And this is my absolute favorite dish ever. It was so good that I got it twice. I got 2 plates. Well, no, actually it was about a week later. I called the restaurant, and the chef answered, and I said, you know, I just wanted to compliment for your beautiful tortellini, because I've never had anything quite like it. And at some point he said, this is my mom's recipe. It's not a, you know, every household has its own recipe, and it was his grandmother's recipe. It's like, do you like to have it? I'm like, I didn't want to ask. I mean, I was ashamed or shy to ask. And so he gave me the complete recipe, and this is the recipe I'm doing today. So this is a not well kept secret. Something really special. The meat is cooling off in the pan. I turned it off, and this is the rest of the meats I will need. So it's 50 grams of prosciutto crudo. You don't care if it's thin or if in pieces, because you have to blend everything anyway. And don't trim off the fat, because it's a lot of flavor. And 50 grams of mortadella. Now, and these are the meats. I'll keep fat and oil out until you have this. And this to the meats that I have already cooked and blended in the blender, I'm gonna add same amount of the initial individual meat. So 50 grams of ricotta, 50 grams of stracchino, and 50 grams of parmigiano. I'm also going to add nutmeg. I like to keep nutmeg whole and to grate them on some white pepper, 1 egg, and a little bit of untreated lemon zest. Look, very little, because a little bit goes a really long way. And then mix. If you make too much filling, just freeze it and use it another time. Or taste it. This is really, really, really good. Oh my God. Now, to make tortellini this time, I have I've reached the next step. I didn't go to my usual 6 on the pasta machine, and you don't need. You just need to go straight and have a good knife and a ruler, which at the moment I don't have. I have good knives, but I can't find the ruler. I'm going to take out all the ones that are not square or squarish. Wash your hands. This is the filling. I'm going to put just a little bit on each piece. Try to be consistent. You know when they say that cooking for your family, cooking for your friends, cooking in general for people takes a lot of effort and passion. So if anything you take out of this things is a new appreciation of the people that cook for you, either in a household or in a restaurant or whatever, well, that's going to be worth it. And I'll show you how to close it. I fold it and I pinch it close. I'll show you again. The cat wants to go out. I fold it in half diagonally and I pinch it close. I'll wrap it around my finger and I lift the little point up. Ok, here. Franci, vieni un attimo. Fold it in half. Pinch it. When the pasta is dry, or is drying up, I always keep a glass of water and I wet my thumb so I can wet this corner and pinch close. See, sometimes they open back, so I pinch them close and put them open. Then, in order to keep them from not clogging, I will get some, this is semolina flour, and spray it on top, like this. You can freeze them in a pan, like that, then sieve out all the flour when they're frozen and put them into a bag, and then use them when you want. You don't need to thaw them before cooking them. So, this is how you make tortellini. Tortellini cooks directly in broth. I waited for the broth to boil and then I put them in. Now, the broth is not boiling any longer because the tortellini were frozen, and you put them frozen as they are directly in the pan. And then you cover so it picks up the boil faster. Food's ready! This is literally 3 minutes later. I don't think there's anything better than eat tortellini, homemade, with a homemade broth, while Mrs. Fletcher is arresting her next killer. I like to put a little bit of chili pepper, like a light sprinkle of parmigiano, and watch Mrs. Fletcher, of course. Well,
quando mi ha sfidato a quella gara mi è venuta in mente l'idea di come liberarmi. I 2 colombi che lasciai a Montao, che erano miei, ma avevano dei falsi anelli di riconoscimento e tornarono a entrarmi sul mio letto. I 2 che dovevano...
I'm tempted to finish this video like Mrs. Fletcher.
E li ho riportati indietro.
No, no.
L'ho costretto a togliere